All right, good people. It's your boy Nate here. You know what time it is. It's Monday night. It's time for Father's Authority. I got something good for you guys tonight. I got my friend Pastor Cedric on with me. So we're gonna have a good time tonight talking about, all things fatherhood. Yeah. We got 1 minute. You guys know what to do. Share this on your page so we can get fathers from everywhere engaged. So you guys take a minute, the minute we got left, and just click share. Share this live video to your page so we can reach as many fathers as we can. Because my beautiful wife tell me what to do. All right. Guys, come on in. I look forward to you guys' comments as well, as always. All right, it is 7 o'clock. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Nate Holloway here for another Father's Authority. Tonight, we starts the first of our interview series where I'll be interviewing fathers on all things fatherhood. And tonight, I have my good friend, Pastor Cedric Rouson here with me. Tell everybody hi, Pastor.
Glad to be with everybody here, y'all.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about fatherhood tonight, Pastor. I'm glad to have you on with me. For those of you who are just tuning in for the first time, a Father's Authority is a part of Kingdom Relationships where our goal is to change the narrative on fatherhood, to start the conversation, to change fatherlessness, to have more fathers speaking to the lives of their children and coming into the home, even if they've been gone for a while, coming back into the lives of their children and to help new fathers coming up. Because y'all know my story. When my son was born, I didn't have my father and I was terrified. First child, and I know what to do, and God showed me what to do. He's still showing me what to do. And I learned from watching guys like Pastor Cedric and other guys, how they treat their children and their sons. And I get tips from them. But let me give you guys a little bit about Pastor Cedric. Pastor Cedric serves as the head pastor of Shekinah Kingdom Church, known as the Place of Change, and is regarded as one of the youngest established millennial pastors in the coastal Virginia area. He's a fourth-generation pastor and is the son of Bishop A. Ray and the late Christina Rouson, whom he succeeded in ministry. He studied religion at Liberty University and completed undergraduate studies at Richmond, Virginia Seminary. He's also earned a Master of Divinity degree from the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology at Virginia Union University, my hometown, Richmond, VA. Pastor Rouse is also a highly respected musician. God, yes, he is. Whew, y'all got to hear this man on the organ. He's a writer and arranger whose musical gift began at 3 years old and has carried him throughout the United States, Italy, Denmark, Switzerland, and India. He proudly shares life and ministry with his wife, Nadia, and they are the proud parents of one son, Creedon Darnell. Did I pronounce that right, Pastor Creedon?
Yes, sir.
So, Pastor, tell us a little bit about your story about growing up with your dad.
Well, first of all, Nate, thank you for just inviting me to be here. Really grateful for the opportunity. I am blessed in that I grew up with my father, raised by both of my parents in our home, and my father to me is larger than life. Most boys, they usually say the notion of a daddy's girl and a mama's boy. In my case, however, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. In my case, however, I was really a daddy's boy. Hung out with my father all the time. My dad was and is for me a great model. At the time growing up, I mean, he was just, again, the image of manhood, faithful husband, faithful father, wonderful provider. But beyond that, I can remember as a child, my father would literally make up songs to help us as little children.
You there, Pastor Cedric? I think we had some technical difficulties. I think we may have lost him for a second. We can get him back on. It's no problem, guys. These things happen. Give me 1 second. How are you guys tonight? See, we got some people coming on viewing. So we're going to come back. He was telling us about his father. So let's see if we could find out what happened. Pastor, if you there, just disconnect your camera and reconnect again. He's logging back on somehow with his computer, but he's logging back on. So, but we're going to keep it going, guys. So, again, tell you a little bit more about it. Y'all, you guys see my jersey? 49 of Steve Young. I know we weren't in the Super Bowl. I know you guys tired of Tom Brady winning, but you can't deny greatness. You can't. Guys, fatherhood is a very, 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 very important subject. We got to change this. Let me get Pastor Cedric logged back on. Give me 1 second, guys. All right, don't go nowhere, guys. We still here. He's coming back. But fatherhood, we got to, as I've been speaking on these last few weeks, we got to get back into speaking to the lives of our children, letting them know that we're there for them, that we have their backs, that we love them, and that they can be great, and they will be great, guys, because they need it. Our sons need it. Our daughters need it. It's Harry. There he is. He's coming back.
Hey, I'm sorry, y'all. I don't literally know what happened. I was literally in the middle of talking, so that is my apologies. Growing up, my father would make up songs because we literally would, as children, didn't want to do things. We don't want to brush our teeth. We don't want to do things. We don't want to put our clothes on. My father, who was also a musician, would literally write songs that we would sing at home. And before we knew it, we got so into singing the songs that we ended up doing the one song comes to mind. She's a beautiful lady. She's a beautiful mama. He wrote about our mother. So in the verses we go, you've got to brush your teeth, comb your hair, take a bath, because she's a beautiful lady. I never associated till I got older what in the world brushing my teeth had to do with me my mama as a beautiful. But it taught us to do those things. And so, I mean, from that stages to watching my father as a provider, watching my father work tirelessly so that we never, had to lack anything. Following my father in ministry, not just pastoring, but I mean, as a boy, I started playing the organ at a young age. And so it was following down with my father. 1 year, I may have been about 7 or 8 years old, and my father was in revival. I remember the church to this day. I won't name the church. Beautiful church on the peninsula side. My father was in revival, and when service started, I went to go get on the organ or to go sit by the organ, and the organist told me I needed to go sit down because he did not believe I could play. And I went back into pastor's study. I told my dad. My father said, "Don't worry about it, son. I'll tell you what you do. Go sit down. When I get up to preach, I'm going to sing, and I want you to come up and play for me." And the church was blown away, of course, when this little boy walks on the organ and starts playing for his dad. But those are the kind of memories that I have from that right up until literally losing my mom and watching my father be the strength for our family. My father has been through much sickness, but watching his determination and his will to live and to strive for good health. I mean, my father's everything, man. My father's everything.
That's good, man. That's good. And that's how I believe a lot of people feel when they do have their fathers, in their life. Again, as I said everybody before, I didn't have my father, but I see how my son is when I come through the door. You know, he runs to me. It's like an everyday thing. Daddy, he hit that door. Daddy, he come running around the corner, hug me, and I do say, and I say, you know what to do. Give me a big hug. Ask him how was his day, and I just to see the joy in his face, it is awesome. And you just showed that how you talk about your father and how you were as a child. So let me ask you a question. What does fatherhood mean to you?
Wow. You know, there are so many different ways to look at this. When I look at a father, obviously fatherhood stems from being a father. And, you know, in a more deeper context, a father is looked at, that meaning carries a few things, but one of which is one who imparts life and is committed to it. There's one rendering there for the Greek word for father, pater, one who imparts life and is committed to it, or a progenitor, one who brings to pass the potential for likeness, an originator, one who sets the course. Fatherhood to me has everything to do with identity, impartation, and influence. It's a father. It's one who first gives identity to his children, not only in terms of perhaps their name, but in terms of what life looks like, what a man, what a righteous man or good man or even a bad man will look like. A father becomes his son's model in terms of his image of what to be. A father becomes his daughter's model as it relates to who to want or who not to want.
Right.
So fatherhood is a very important thing, because in truth, long before children often know how to identify goodness on their own, we tend to identify what is right, wrong, good, or bad by what we see portrayed in front of us. Growing up, I would often, when we were really little, we would hear our father call my mother mom. Well, I knew my mother wasn't his mom, but he did that so that we would get used to calling her mom. So it's all about creating an example. And that's why I love that meaning I saw, one who imparts life and is committed to it. It's a commitment to constantly provide impartation of some kind so that it provides something for people to follow. Fathering is not just a check. It's not just provision, though provision is a part of it. Fatherhood goes far beyond just provision, particularly of monetary needs or material needs. Fathering goes into the provision of a sense of identity, providing a sense of identity. Just as a husband is called to band the house, a house band, one called to band the house, a father is one called to give identity and to provide influence and impartation to that family. One who is called to be heroic enough to fight off anything that would seek to destroy the family, but human enough to also bleed in front of the family in a healthy way, so that we don't make our fathers God, but so we're able to understand the balance between being heroic and being powerful and also being a person. We see this if we get the benefit of a father, we see it. My father didn't know his father, wasn't raised with his father. He had a stepfather for his early years until he died. My father didn't know his birth father. And so my dad used to say to us, his motivation for being a father was that he wanted to try to become what he did not have.
That's good. That's good.
And I want to say that because obviously living in our generation today, many homes exist without a father, at least in the home. And so it's important whether the model is learning from what you saw, or whether the model is being able or trying to create to fill the void of what you didn't see. The way you look at it, there's a sense of influence there. And when you have the benefit of a father-like figure, maybe not biological father, but a grandfather or a godfather or a coach in the school or a deacon at the church or someone who is some type of citizen, maybe a neighbor or uncle, whenever you're able to have male presence, you're able to get that provision and that protection, that direction, some sense of discipline, some sense of strength and structure. The Bible says without a vision, the people perish. That word really translates there. Without a vision, people cast off restraint. So the idea is that vision creates boundaries or restraints for people. A part of what fathering does is fatherhood provides restraints and restrictions. It says you can go here, but don't go there. That's bad for you.
Right.
Try this, but don't try that. That's bad for you. And a child or even a growing adult who is wise or listens well will learn to follow what has been set. I've heard it said, it is better, what is better than personal experience is to learn from somebody else's experience. You know, for you to be able to glean something from someone who's walked that way before. So when I think of that, not to exhaust that, but fatherhood to me is about setting those boundaries, not only from the discipline perspective, but from the direction perspective. Right. This is a good path to take. That's not a good path to take. And I'm willing to walk you through that journey.
Yeah. And that's good because you said something about having the father figure in your life. I grew up, I didn't have my father, but I had father figures. I had my godfather, who was my pastor growing up. Mm-hmm. And I had my high school band director. Then I had my pastor in my 20s. Then I had other mentors. And I still have mentors that are father figures to me that can say, hey, son, you know, I wouldn't do it if I was you. This is how I would do it. And I can't say I did everything the right way they said do it, but the outcome that they said would happened
right
if I didn't do it that way. So it's good for that direction because you can say, okay, son, if you do this way, this is going to happen. Do this that way, that's going to happen. And then if son don't listen, then you can always hear in your mind, daddy saying, you shouldn't do this. And then, or you follow. So, okay, that was good. That was good. So let me ask you again, what's the best part of being a father for you?
I think for me personally, the best part of being a father, my son is 4 years old. So, you know, he's that interesting and precocious age where, you know, he's really starting to come into a personality, and we're having to remind him that no is not a good word to use when it comes to his parents and things like that. You know, he's impressionable. But the thing I love about being a father is to be able to see myself duplicated in some ways.
That's good.
All right. And I don't mean that to suggest that my son doesn't have his own identity by far, but to see patterns, not only the pattern of my son to me, but me to my father. Okay. In my case, I find myself saying things to my son that I remember or was told my father said to me growing up, perhaps even when I was his age.
Wow.
It's like history repeating itself.
Yep.
And what it reminds me of is the notion, Jesus Christ the same yesterday, today, and forever. It says to me that when it comes to the true power of that in which is true or principle or important for living, God has a way of recreating it in a new generation. So to me, the best part of fathering is being able almost, you know, they have this phrase now, they instead of saying, you know, pay it back, they'll say, pay it forward. Fathering is like paying it forward. Again, whether I received it from my natural father or whether I received it from a father figure, there are lessons that I now pass on. I can't wait till my son gets old enough that he can venture out a bit on his own. I already know what I'm going to teach him. I'm going to teach him something my father told me years ago. He said, son, my dad used to tell me, always know more than one way to get where you're going. For some reason, I remember that. He always know more than one way to get where you're going. And it's funny because I find myself repeating that principle now, particularly if I'm getting lost somewhere or something like that. I look for new ways to get to old places. And I find myself finding lessons like that I'm now transferring. So I'm seeing personality come to pass and a transfer of principle. to my son. I also equally enjoy seeing the areas where my son is different than me.
Mm-hmm.
And so a part of what fatherhood does for me in a great sense of joy is it allows me to now separate and segregate what parts of my thinking are principle versus what parts are personality.
Oh, that's good.
All right. And I want to clarify what that means. If we're not careful, sometimes we will try to make principles out of things that is just personality.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to know that. For example, maybe it's not their father, maybe it's their grandfather or someone. Their grandfather was an old man, just always hard, always hard. And so the grandfather teaches that to his son, and his son now feels he's got to be hard. But now he has a son who needs somewhat the more tender, transparent side of a dad.
Because his personality is different.
Right, because his personality is different. But if the father doesn't discern the difference between personality and principle, then he will ride his son by derailing him off of the path he ought to be on, simply because that was the way his father did it for him. And he now receives that as a principle when really that could have just been Pop's personality.
That's so good. Yeah, that's so good.
Fathering, a part of watching it play out in the life of my child is that it allows me to actively go back and redact what things I absorbed or even things about me may just be the way I am, not necessarily the way it is. And that's going to be important, particularly if you're going to have multiple children, because no two children are the same. And just because it worked that way for Junior doesn't mean that's going to work that way for the other one. Doesn't mean that's going to work the same way for a girl that it did for the boy, or going to work that way for the younger child like it did for the older child. We've got to be careful. And so fathering, particularly at this stage, allows me to see where I can edit some of my ways so that I can be more of a custom fit to cut to the continuity of my son's purpose and destiny, and not just a carbon copy of the experiences that I had.
That's good. That's good. And I can relate to that because, like I said, I didn't have a mother, but my mother was one of those moms that you got beat. And, it was for good reason, but you got beatings or you got punished, you got sent to your rooms, but you got whippings. And I had to learn to, if my son does something, not to always go for just whipping. I said, okay, why did he do that? Let me talk to him first. So I sit him down. I talk to him first. Son, why did you do this? Daddy, this is why Daddy said, he's like, Daddy, you mad at me? No, Daddy's not mad at you, but Daddy will be upset. And I had to learn, okay, now he needs a pop. He needs to be popped. But here, I just need to talk to him, because if I pop him here, that may break his spirit on something that he's just trying to do or trying to learn. But then here, if I don't pop him, then he's going to think he can get away with that and keep doing it.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's so good. I like that. And I like how you said that. Another thing is, how important are a father's words to his child?
Oh, man. I'm going to tell you the first thing that comes to my mind. It's not my attempt to preach.
Go for it.
Right. But the thought that comes to my mind is I'm picturing Jesus in the Jordan River, and his cousin John the Baptist is baptizing him, and the Holy Spirit descends like a dove, and there's a voice that comes from heaven. It's the voice of his father who says, "This is my beloved son, in whom I'm well pleased. Hear ye him. This is my beloved son, in whom I'm well pleased." Can you imagine? And sometimes we have such a high Christology of Jesus that we often disregard the human parts of his experience. Can you just imagine what it's like to be a son and to hear the voice of your father say loud enough that whoever is around can clearly hear the heavens open up and a voice declare, "I'm proud of my son." That's the power of a father's words. And in Jesus's case, the only thing Jesus has done at this point is be baptized. He hasn't healed anybody and turned the water into wine. Definitely hadn't died on the cross. So the question is, what has he done that would make his father proud? till you realize the fact that Jesus enters ministry at, they say, around 30 years old, which means if he's done nothing else, he has been able, though being equally considered in the form of God, he's humbled himself, coming in flesh. He's now lived 30 years being obedient. He's been submitted to his stepfather, Joseph. He has grown up in the wisdom and in the knowledge and the power of God. Growing up the way God designed was enough for God to say of my son, I'm proud of you.
Yes.
And what I want to say about that is the power of a father's words is fathers are proud when they see what they invested in their children come to pass.
Mm-hmm. So, did we lose you again? I think we might have lost him again. But this, man, guys, this is good. This is so good. Fathers are proud when they see the investment in their children come to pass. And I'm getting them back on. I think about that, guys, when how I look at my son, when Caleb, how happy he is when I tell him I'm proud of him. The expression on his face, the look on his face, because he always say, Daddy, I did it, Daddy, I did it, Daddy. And to see how happy he is when I say, I'm proud of you, son. He looked at me with this little quirky smile, and then he'll come and give me a high five. But to see that he's happy when I tell him I'm proud of him makes me feel joy. And to see that he's joyful. But we're going to get Pastor back on. Give me a second. Let me see exactly what happened. You guys just bear with us. Trying some new software. So that could be why we're having some issues. But I think Pastor Cedric said that his computer shut down on him. So we're gonna see again exactly what happened, and we're gonna get him back on. Here he comes. There he is.
Hey man, can you hear me?
Got you.
Well, I had this much problem out of this. As much as I endorse Mac Computers, I'm calling the company tonight. This is ridiculous. I apologize because this affects the quality of your broadcast.
No, man, you're good because I know that this is just the enemy.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. This is
trying to keep it from getting out there.
But
the last thing you said was, I want you to expound that. You said that you love to see your investment. Return your investment in your child.
Yeah, parenting is investment. It's investment. It's not a gift. You know, sometimes we'll use terms with our children, that suggest we're giving them something. But the truth is, parenting is not a gift. It's an investment. And it's an investment to which we have the right to expect a return. Mm-hmm. All right? Just like, I don't have any respect for grown children who won't take care of their parents when they're older. And I'm not talking about whether or not you put them in a nursing home or something. Ultimately, if they need care, they need care. I'm talking about children who won't even check on their parent, don't care about their parents, upset if the parent. Now, when we were children and we needed our diapers changed and our clothes changed, and we needed food, they did that for us. But if you follow the cycle of life, eventually the parents will get old enough that they too may require some special attention. And now God has designed it so that it is the child who provides for the parent what the parent used to provide for the child. It's an investment. Yeah. And ultimately, what every good parent would want to see is the investment they made in their child lead to a harvest in that child's life. For the child to put to use, the best thing that my son will ever do for me is become what I raised him to be. He doesn't have to buy me a house or a car. He doesn't have to do anything. I can buy my own stuff. I just want him to become greater than what I was, better than what I was. I want to see him make good on the deposits that I have put into him. Because parenting is an investment. And just like an investment, I say this to encourage parents, just like any investment, There are going to be times where it looks like you're doing well. There are going to be other times that it looks like your stock is down and you want to just kind of quit, pull out, close it down, shut it down, but you're in it for the long haul. Okay, that's what parenting is. The Bible says that children to a young parent are like arrows in the hand of an archer. Okay, an archer takes those arrows and points them in a direction. I want to say this for just a minute. My philosophy, based upon that scripture, is that parents ought to be directing children at something. I don't tell my son he can be whatever he wants to be. Because the truth of the matter is, depending on how crazy his imagination is, he may want to be something that isn't good for him to be at all.
Right.
It's better is for me to pay enough attention to my child when he's young that I start to notice the things that he gravitates towards. And then like an arrow, I need to start pointing him in that direction. If my son, in my case, I was 5, I'm 5'5". I'm not saying it's impossible, but more than likely I was not going to be a basketball player. It would be crazy for me my whole childhood talking about I want to slam dunk. I want to be a basketball player. And if my child is only telling me you can be anything you want to be, then they're going to set me up to eventually fail and be disappointed because they didn't direct me into something I was good at. The reason I have a musical career now is because when I was 3 years old, my parents saw something in me developing and they went and got a little, maybe 26 key white keyboard. I wish I still had it to this day. I don't. Look, it was like a Fisher Price keyboard, but I played my first songs on that keyboard. And from there, they went and got an organ and put it in the house. And they went and bought me keyboards. They kept cultivating that, pointing me in a direction. So by the time I was ready to finish high school, about the time that I was writing music, I was working, I was traveling, going to school. It's much easier when we begin to look at the traits that our children have when they're young and point them in a direction. So that is the investment that I'm talking about. If you think your child likes numbers, if they do better in math than they do in any other subject, then start directing them. See how they feel about things that are accountants and architects or things that use great math. See what they think about these things. Point them in a direction rather than leaving the child with no direction. And now the child is a sophomore in high school and doesn't know what they want to be when they grow up. That's because somebody didn't point them in a direction. And so, for me, parenting is an investment. It's a full-time job. It requires priority. Even, tonight, I'm honored to be here with you. I'm with you by permission of my wife because it's our family night. That's the day a week that I dedicate and set aside. It doesn't mean it's the only day, but it's the guaranteed day that I'm with my family. She, of course, was glad to release me to be a part of this. But what it does,
well, I said thank you.
Of course, it creates consistency because in my case, I'm a pastor and a minister and many other hats I wear in life. But the one thing I am the most important out of everything else that I am in this world, I am a husband and a father. And I do not want to create a narrative where Shekinah had a great pastor and Hampton Roads or Virginia or America or the world had a great preacher or a singer had a really good songwriter and musician, but my children don't feel they had a good father.
That's good. And you see that a lot.
Oh, yes.
And especially in church coming up, you see a lot of pastors, they focus more on the ministry than do their family, put the ministry first and then their family. That's why a lot of the kids just leave this church. A lot of kids, they go out there and they get a little crazy. One thing my wife said to me when I even told her that I want to do anything with ministry, she said, promise me that it would not be put before our family. Mm-hmm. And she tell, and I check with her before I do anything, babe. Do we have anything planned? I'm going to do this. Do you mind? I'm not asking because I have to ask permission. I'm asking because I honor her.
Absolutely.
To say, babe. And then half the time I don't even want to do anything because I want to be home with my son. with my son. I like spending time with my son. I like doing those things. And I I honor your wife and appreciate her for allowing you to come on, and I honor you for being that man family first. I appreciate seeing that. So, last question: what advice would you give your child? What advice would you give your son about success?
I would tell my son, and will tell my son, and anybody else's son who may get access to this. Success is an illusion if that success is not rooted inwardly.
Okay.
Success must begin inwardly because it is the things on the inside that last the longest. Okay. Success that is not rooted inwardly becomes an illusion. It is an illusion of success. So, for example, popular song that's out, right? Little Duval, Living My Best Life. I like the song, actually. It's kind of funny to hear, and some of the language is, but the idea of the song produces a happy feeling about living your best life. What I would teach my son is how to define his best life by starting inwardly. Success is, number one, to develop a relationship with Jesus Christ that allows you to emulate the character of God in the earth, which is what? To love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength, to love your neighbor as yourself. So love God, love people. That's success at the core. Mm-hmm. Love your family. Be faithful to family. Prioritize family, because at the end of the day, that may be all you have. Everything you pursue in life, pursue it with purpose in mind, not profit.
That's good.
Okay? Because purpose gets down to your why.
Why you're doing it.
Why you're doing it.
Yep.
And why you do a thing will ultimately become the fuel long after the money is gone. So what I'm establishing here is a sense of priority. And success has to start with a priority that is inward, or else we will spend our lives chasing the wind. I would tell my son about success what Solomon said in Ecclesiastes. It says, woe to the land that has a child or has a young person for a king. It says, woe to the land that has a child for a king, for the child, and I'm paraphrasing here, will be tempted to feast too soon. He says, rather, only eat enough to survive when you're young. What it's suggesting is, it says, woe to the land that has a child for a king, but happy is the land who has a king who eats at the proper time. And then at that, eats enough to be full, doesn't eat and drink enough to be drunk. What it's talking about success and discernment. I would tell my son to pace yourself so that you don't fall so in love with wanting to live it up when you're young, that you end up having nothing when you're old.
Oh, that's good.
But wait for the proper time, it says, to feast. My father would put it in much simpler terms. He would say, if you do what you have to do when you're young, you can do what you want to do when you're old. But if you do what you want to do when you're young, you'll do what you have to do when you're old.
That's good. I need you to put that on my wall. Message that to me.
Yeah. And so, and what we see, and this is no judgment, a job is a job. And I know some people who are elderly do this just to keep in shape, keep alive. But sometimes it pains my heart when I go into a Walmart or somewhere like that, and you see much older people who really should just be enjoying their labor, but they're having to work. I'm not talking about the ones who just want to do it, but ones that are having to work these jobs at very late years, some of which are having to do those kind of things, still striving to survive, perhaps because in younger years they didn't live with the end in mind. Now they're further down the road having to do what they got to do rather than doing what they want to do. And so I would tell them that success starts inward, that all work must have purpose, and that ultimately Don't be in such a rush to feast, but be willing to do the labor in your younger years while you have the strength and the willpower and the grace to do it. So as you get older, you won't be worn out.
That's so good. That is so good. But I'm serious. I need you to put that
Yes.
that piece of advice on message that to me on Facebook. So one last thing, Pastor, just give a piece of advice to close us out, a piece of advice to fathers out there, especially new fathers, because we got a lot of guys that are new fathers who don't know what to do. You know, I'm pretty sure when your son was born, it was like for me, it was frightening because I didn't know what to do, what I was teaching. You had that advice from your dad in you to give out. I had advice from mentors, but I didn't have my father. What would you say to new fathers out there that are coming up?
I'm going to tell every new father, you need 5 men in your life. And I'm going to tell you these 5 men. Every man, but particularly fathers, need 5 men. And then after I give you this, I'll tell you how I, in similar sense, was scared when my son was born. And I'll close it. You need 5 men in your life. I'm going to base this off of David. You need 5 men in your life. Number 1, you need to identify your Jesse. Okay. Jesse was the parent. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean your biological father, but whoever gave you identity, because that's what Jesse did. Whether we like him or hate him, Jesse gave David identity. And in David's case, some of the way his father treated him, though it was negative, provided the platform for David's pursuit of God.
Okay.
The rejection of his father is his father's rejection that causes David to develop a desire toward his heavenly father. So you need a Jesse in your life. He's your parent. You need a Samuel in your life. Though a prophet, Samuel plays as well somewhat of a priestly role in David's life. So he's like the priest. He's the person who is sent by God, who represents God to you and represents you to God. He's that person who gives David a sense of spiritual significance, pours the oil on his head. Okay. He's there for him it's what pulls David out of obscurity into a sense of significance. It might be a coach at school, might be your pastor, spiritual leader, but some Samuel who can do that. Now, the truth is Samuel's not going to stick around forever. He's not going to be there forever, but he's there to make sure in the most important moments of your critical moments of your life that there is a godly voice there. Every David thirdly needs a Saul. Saul is the positioner in your life. David is anointed king, but he goes back to feed sheep. It's Saul who calls for David to come into the palace, first to play the harp, and then eventually as an armor bearer and as a warrior. So Saul is there, though again, Saul doesn't have the greatest relationship with David. Saul is there to position David by getting David exposure to a lifestyle he would not have seen while keeping sheep. There's some in our lives who are there because they expose us to new dimensions of life that we would not have seen otherwise. Number 4, every David needs a Jonathan. Jonathan is his partner. That's his friend. That's someone who is there, who you know can cut covenant with you, who can be there. You'd be surprised how many men are lonely and they don't have anybody they can just be themselves around. So you need a partner. You need a Jonathan in your life who is willing to take off his own robe and take off his own royalty because he sees something in you. And all of this goes back to fathering, because you can never, and here's a principle I'll throw out here in my attempt to haste to a close. You can never out-father your manhood. In other words, I will only be as effective of a father as I am a man.
That's good. That's true.
My fathering gets hindered if I don't increase, encourage, and empower who I am as a man. And so these 5 people I'm giving you are positions: the parent, the priest, the positioner, the partner. These are the kind of people who influence who I am as a man, which influences who I am as a father. The 5th one is every David needs a prophet. That's Nathan. Every David needs a prophet. By the time David gets Nathan, Jonathan is dead, Saul is dead, Samuel is dead, probably Jesse is dead. So at this point, he's in a whole new sphere of life. And David is a grown man with such power that his power has become his prison.
Mm-hmm.
Taking Bathsheba from Uriah, killing off Uriah. He's just making dumb decisions because he doesn't have anybody close to him to check him. That's where Nathan comes in. Nathan is about accountability. Nathan isn't trying to be his friend. Nathan isn't trying to replace Jonathan. Nathan understands that his role in David's life is to be a source of accountability, to be able to look him dead in the eye and say, "Thou art the man." Every David needs a parent, who is Jesse. He needs a priest, who is Samuel. He needs a positioner, who is Saul. He needs a partner like Jonathan, and he needs a prophet like Nathan. And when you put those five together, it provides the grace that enables a man to be the kind of man, to have the kind of accountability, the kind of grace that'll make him a great father. There's no perfect father. Fathering is ultimately about, and I go back to that definition there, one who imparts life and is committed to the journey. Fathering is about being faithful to the journey. And that's what I want to say to some dad out here. Be faithful to the journey. My son was born. And I'll never forget, everybody's excited. And man, I'm scared. I'm really scared. And first time father. And I let someone use my car during that time. And so we had my wife's car. Her car was a stick shift. I had really just learned how to drive a stick shift. Okay. And my wife is clearly in a position to drive. I remember crying as I was carrying my son out of the hospital toward the car. I was scared for my life because I wasn't that good at driving the stick shift, and I wasn't sure I would be able to get him home safely. Something that simple. I said, "Lord, don't let me kill my son on the way home." And I remember I got on that interstate. I got that car in fifth gear so fast, and I didn't slow down for anything till I hit my exit. I was coming off the exit in fifth gear and had to finally downshift because for me, my fear was about my ability to get my child to safety. And believe it or not, on one level or another, every man has been afraid at some point as to whether they would get their child to safety. What I want to tell every brother is, you father your children one drive at a time.
That's good. That's good.
Hit that thing one drive at a time. You've got to do what you can. Do what you can. Do the best you can. One person, a friend of mine, says excellence is to do the best you can with what you have from where you are. That's all you can do. That's all you can do. You can't fret yourself over what you can't do. Just do what you can do with what you have where you are. Make that drive. And every drive you make adds to the journey of worth in that child's life.
That is so good. That's so good. Pastor Cedric, I appreciate you, man. You have set the bar for this interview series. I thoroughly enjoyed you, man. And I definitely, there's going to be other things I'm going to be doing to follow the series that I would love to have you on again as well.
Would love to.
And I appreciate it, man. You have a good night. Tell your wife again, I say thank you. Appreciate it. Give your son a high five for me.
Will do. Thanks for having me.
All right, you be blessed.
All right. Take care.
All right. All right, guys. That was Pastor Cedric Rouson. Awesome interview. I thoroughly enjoyed it myself. I'm going back over the interview after this and take me some notes. Appreciate you guys for being on. Again, you guys go back in, share the replay for me of this video off my page or off King Relationships page. Guys, until next week, all for the rest of this year, I'm telling you guys, it's straight interviews from different dads, and it's going to be great. I got some people, some powerhouses up here that's going to be talking to you guys about all things fatherhood. Again, it's Nate Holloway. Thank you guys for joining us on the Father's Authority. Check us out at our website at kingdomrelationships.org. We got some good things on there for you. Love you guys. You guys have a good night.